You think World War II soldiers just suffered through brutal winters with standard-issue gear, but they actually developed survival techniques that were more effective than most modern cold weather equipment. When temperatures dropped to -40 degrees Fahrenheit and supply lines froze solid, these battlefield innovators could stay warm and combat-ready using nothing but scraps, ingenuity, and hard-earned knowledge. Here's what sounds completely backwards. Soldiers discovered that some of their most effective winter survival tools were things they weren't supposed to use: newspaper for insulation, straw for bedding, and even enemy positions for shelter. While armies planned for summer campaigns, frontline troops were inventing cold weather survival systems that kept them alive through the harshest winters in recorded history. But the real story isn't about soldiers just toughing it out until spring. It's about battlefield engineers who developed 10 revolutionary survival tricks that turned frozen battlefields into survivable environments. These techniques were so effective that units using them had survival rates 300% higher than those relying only on standard equipment. I've analyzed military records, soldier diaries, and battlefield reports from the Eastern Front, Battle of the Bulge, and other frozen hellscapes of World War II. What these soldiers accomplished will completely change how you think about cold weather survival and human adaptation under extreme pressure. The challenge World War II soldiers faced was absolutely deadly. The winter of 1941–42 on the Eastern Front saw temperatures drop to -50 degrees Fahrenheit. During the Battle of the Bulge, more American soldiers were hospitalized for frostbite than for combat wounds. In the mountains of Italy, entire units were found frozen in their positions. Standard military gear was designed for temperate climates, not Arctic warfare. Wool uniforms froze stiff when wet. Leather boots became ice blocks. Steel weapons were too cold to handle with bare skin. Supply lines couldn't deliver enough fuel, food, or warm clothing to keep armies functional in extreme cold. Without these survival innovations, entire divisions would have been lost to cold rather than combat. In this video, I'm going to reveal the 10 tricks World War II soldiers used to survive freezing winters without modern cold weather gear. From newspaper insulation systems to buddy heating techniques, these battlefield innovations kept armies fighting when the cold should have stopped them dead. Trick number 1. The newspaper insulation system. The first survival trick soldiers discovered was using newspaper as insulation, a technique so effective it could add 20 degrees of warmth to any uniform. This wasn't just stuffing random papers into clothes. It was a systematic insulation method that soldiers refined through trial and error on frozen battlefields. Here's how it worked. Soldiers would layer newspaper between their uniform and undershirt, creating air pockets that trapped body heat. The key was crumpling the paper slightly to create maximum airspace while avoiding bulk that would restrict movement. A single newspaper could provide insulation equivalent to an extra wool sweater. The technique spread rapidly through frontline units because the materials were everywhere. Propaganda leaflets, captured enemy newspapers, and military communications all became insulation material. Soldiers learned that different papers worked better. Thicker paper lasted longer, while thinner paper was more flexible. But newspaper only worked if soldiers could stay relatively dry. When conditions got really wet and cold, they needed something more substantial, which led to their second innovation. Trick number 2. The straw bedding technique. Soldiers discovered that straw could be turned into insulation systems that worked better than military-issued bedding. This technique, borrowed from farmers and refined for combat conditions, could mean the difference between sleep and hypothermia during brutal winter nights. The process was systematic and effective. Soldiers would gather straw from barns, fields, or destroyed buildings, then create thick mattresses by stuffing straw into empty grain sacks or canvas covers. These improvised mattresses provided crucial insulation from frozen ground that could drain body heat faster than Arctic air. But here's where battlefield innovation really showed. Soldiers learned to layer straw in specific ways that maximized insulation while maintaining durability. They'd create a base layer of coarse straw for structure, then add finer straw for comfort and insulation. The top layer used the softest available material to prevent scratching and discomfort. The sharing systems were remarkable. Units would pool their straw gathering efforts and share materials based on need rather than rank. Soldiers understood that keeping everyone warm was essential for unit survival and combat effectiveness. But even the best bedding was useless without proper shelter. That's where soldiers developed their third innovation, turning destruction into protection. Trick number 3. The rubble shelter construction. Soldiers learned to transform bomb buildings and battlefield debris into sophisticated winter shelters that provided better protection than many purpose-built structures. This wasn't just hiding in ruins. It was engineering warm, defensible positions using nothing but rubble and military ingenuity. The construction technique was surprisingly sophisticated. Soldiers would select partially destroyed buildings with intact foundations and remaining walls, then use debris to create windproof enclosures. They understood that proper rubble placement could create insulation layers that trapped warm air while blocking deadly wind. The key innovation was creating thermal zones within rubble shelters. Soldiers would build smaller enclosed spaces within larger ruins, concentrating body heat in areas that could be effectively warmed. These micro-shelters often maintained temperatures 30 to 40 degrees warmer than outside air. Ventilation management was crucial for safety and comfort. Soldiers learned to create airflow systems that prevented carbon monoxide buildup from heating fires while maintaining thermal efficiency. Poor ventilation could kill as quickly as cold, so proper air management was essential. The camouflage benefits were significant. Rubble shelters looked like ordinary battlefield destruction to enemy observers, providing concealment as well as warmth. Soldiers could create comfortable positions that were nearly invisible from ground level or aerial reconnaissance. But shelters were only as good as the heating systems inside them. That's where soldiers developed their fourth trick, creating heat without revealing their positions. Trick number 4. The concealed heating methods. Soldiers developed heating techniques that could provide life-saving warmth without creating smoke, light, or other signatures that would reveal their positions to enemy forces. These concealed heating methods were essential for survival in combat zones where a visible fire could mean death. The candle heater system was ingenious in its simplicity. Soldiers would place multiple candles inside metal containers, ammunition boxes, helmets, or improvised reflectors to concentrate and amplify heat output. A few candles in a properly designed reflector could warm a small shelter for hours without creating visible signatures. Body heat sharing became a systematic survival technique. Soldiers developed buddy systems where 2 or 3 men would share sleeping areas and pool their body heat for mutual survival. These arrangements weren't just about warmth. They were about maintaining the body temperature needed for combat effectiveness. The heated object technique used thermal mass to store and release heat safely. Soldiers would heat metal objects, canteens, ammunition, tools, over small concealed fires, then use these objects as portable heaters that provided warmth for hours without ongoing fuel consumption. Chemical heating was discovered through battlefield improvisation. Soldiers learned that certain chemical reactions could produce heat without flames. Mixing lime with water created heat, as did certain combinations of captured materials. These chemical heaters were dangerous but effective in desperate situations. Underground heating systems were built in permanent positions. Soldiers would dig heating chambers below ground level, where small fires could burn without creating visible signatures. These underground systems could heat shelters while remaining completely concealed from enemy observation. But heating was useless without proper clothing systems. That's where soldiers developed their fifth innovation, turning standard gear into cold weather survival equipment. Trick number 5. The layering modification systems. Soldiers transformed their standard issue uniforms into effective cold weather systems through systematic layering modifications that could add 40 to 50 degrees of warmth without additional equipment. The base layer modification involved creating air gaps between clothing layers that trapped warm air while allowing moisture to escape. Soldiers would wear their undershirts loose, then add uniform layers with strategic spacing that created insulation zones throughout their clothing system. Captured enemy clothing became integrated into these layering systems. German winter gear was particularly prized by Allied soldiers, while German troops sought American boots and Soviet winter hats. Soldiers learned to combine the best elements from different military clothing. But even the best clothing was useless without proper nutrition to fuel the body's heating systems. That's where soldiers developed their sixth trick, Trick number 6. The caloric maximization techniques. Soldiers discovered that surviving extreme cold required specific nutritional strategies that could double their body's heat production using available military rations and foraged materials. These weren't just eating more, they were systematic approaches to cold weather nutrition that kept soldiers functional in deadly conditions. The fat consumption strategy was based on understanding that fats provided more calories per gram than other nutrients. Soldiers would save and consume every available fat source: butter, lard, meat fat, even captured enemy fat rations. These high-calorie foods provided the energy needed for internal heat production. Hot liquid systems became essential for maintaining core body temperature. Soldiers developed techniques for keeping liquids hot throughout the day using improvised thermal containers. Hot coffee, tea, or soup could raise core temperature and provide psychological comfort during the worst conditions. The timing strategies involved eating specific foods at optimal times for maximum warming effect. Soldiers learned that consuming fats before sleep provided overnight heating, while quick carbohydrates gave immediate energy for warming during cold exposure. Alcohol management was crucial and counterintuitive. While alcohol created a sensation of warmth, soldiers learned it actually increased heat loss and could be deadly in extreme cold. Vitamin supplementation prevented cold-related illnesses that could be fatal in winter conditions. Soldiers sought out vitamin C sources to prevent scurvy and other deficiency diseases that weakened their cold resistance and immune systems. But nutrition was only effective if soldiers could maintain circulation and prevent frostbite. That's where they developed their 7th innovation. Trick number 7. The circulation maintenance exercises. Soldiers developed exercise systems that could maintain circulation and prevent frostbite even during static defensive positions where movement was limited. These weren't just random calisthenics. They were targeted exercises designed to maintain blood flow to extremities and core organs. The isometric exercise systems could be performed silently in combat positions without revealing soldier locations. These exercises involved muscle contractions that generated heat and maintained circulation without requiring visible movement that could attract enemy attention. Finger and toe exercises were essential for maintaining the dexterity needed to operate weapons and equipment. Soldiers developed specific routines for exercising hands and feet that could be performed inside gloves and boots without removing protective gear. The buddy exercise systems involve soldiers working together to maintain each other's circulation through massage, assisted movement, and shared warming techniques. These systems ensured that soldiers could help each other maintain circulation even when individual movement was restricted. Breathing exercises were discovered to have significant warming effects. Soldiers learned breathing techniques that could increase core temperature and improve circulation through controlled respiratory patterns that maximized oxygen intake and heat production. But individual survival techniques were only effective when entire units could work together. That's where soldiers developed their 8th innovation. Trick number 8. The group warming strategies. Soldiers developed group warming techniques that could keep entire units functional in conditions that would incapacitate individual soldiers. The rotation systems ensured that soldiers could take turns in the warmest positions while maintaining unit security and readiness. These systems balanced individual warming needs with tactical requirements, ensuring that units remained combat effective while preventing cold casualties. Shared heating resources were managed through sophisticated distribution systems that maximized warming efficiency across entire units. Fuel, food, and heating materials were allocated based on need and tactical importance rather than rank or personal relationships. But group strategies were useless without proper equipment maintenance. That's where soldiers developed their 9th trick. Trick number 9. The equipment winterization methods. Soldiers learned to modify their weapons, vehicles, and equipment to function reliably in extreme cold conditions that would disable standard military gear. These modifications were essential for maintaining combat capability when equipment failure could mean death. The weapon maintenance systems prevented firearms from freezing and becoming inoperable. Soldiers developed techniques for keeping weapons functional in conditions that would jam or disable standard equipment. This included lubrication modifications, moisture control, and operational procedures that maintained weapon reliability. The improvised equipment systems created new tools and devices specifically designed for cold weather operations. Soldiers became expert at creating heating devices, insulation systems, and survival tools using available materials and battlefield ingenuity. But all these techniques were useless without the knowledge and experience to apply them effectively. That's where soldiers developed their final innovation. Trick number 10. The knowledge-sharing networks. Soldiers created informal knowledge-sharing systems that rapidly spread survival techniques throughout military units, ensuring that life-saving innovations reached soldiers who needed them most. These networks were essential for disseminating survival knowledge that could mean the difference between life and death. The veteran mentorship systems paired experienced soldiers with newcomers to transfer essential cold weather survival knowledge. These relationships ensured that hard-earned survival wisdom was passed down to soldiers who hadn't yet learned these techniques through dangerous trial and error. Cross-unit communication networks shared survival innovations between different military units and branches. Techniques developed by infantry were shared with armor crews, while innovations from support units reached frontline combat soldiers. This cross-pollination of ideas improved survival rates across entire armies. The documentation preserved survival knowledge in written form that could be referenced and shared even when experienced soldiers were unavailable. Soldiers created informal manuals, notes, and guides that captured essential survival techniques for future use. What made World War II soldiers' winter survival truly revolutionary wasn't any single technique. It was how all 10 tricks worked together as a comprehensive survival system. The next time someone complains about a cold day, remember the World War II soldiers who developed sophisticated survival systems using nothing but battlefield scraps and desperate ingenuity. They proved that human adaptability and cooperation can overcome even the most extreme environmental challenges while maintaining the focus needed to fight and win wars. If you were impressed by how World War II soldiers hacked survival out of nothing but rubble, straw, and scraps, then you'll want to see where humanity's cold weather ingenuity truly began. Long before battlefields froze armies in place, Ice Age cavemen were facing -40 degrees Fahrenheit winters without weapons, uniforms, or supply lines, and yet they developed survival systems that heated homes, preserved food for decades, and kept entire communities alive without gas or electricity. In my other video, I reveal the 5 revolutionary methods our ancestors used to thrive in conditions even harsher than World War II's frozen front lines. Watch that next to see the origins of human survival genius.